Welcome to the Lightworker podcast. Today we speak with Aisha from Connection Circles. She is a trauma-informed early childhood and training professional with decades of experience in and out of home care and child protection space. I'm so excited to share this episode with you.
You go straight into there's like this weird feeling that happens in your body, like someone's watching me.
Well, they are. But the other thing too,
but technically no one's watching us right now. Like, that is the truth.
But I feel like that energy, I can feel the energy of being recorded.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe it's responsibility.
Yeah.
You know? I'm going to use your little white.
Yeah.
Pure white. Archangel Metatron. That would be wonderful through 100% pure light, please.
Yeah. I already put it on.
You got it already?
On the couch. The other thing is, though, I have done it before where I've presented and I haven't checked myself, and like I've had a tag out or something, and I'm like,
Let me check, you know.
No, but sometimes you need to actually have a look, not because you're vain, just because it's going to irritate the shit out of you. Like, if I saw someone presenting and I could discreetly let them know, I would help them.
Yes.
Because no one wants to be remembered by that, because people get distracted. They're like,
I know, it's one of the learning styles, right? It's the 30 or the snapshot. What does the person look like? Can I deal with them looking like that? If not, they just shut down.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with that.
So welcome to the podcast, Aish.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
It isn't a big old, formal introduction or anything like that. I just want to go straight into just having a chat about what does Aisha do?
Wow.
Because you've got some interesting things, and I love that you bought notes.
Well, it is.
You bought them for me, didn't you? It is the teacher in you. It's wonderful. But when you were discussing at meditation group that you're doing Circle of Security training for anyone, any human being that is in connection with kids.
Yeah.
It brought up a memory for me for one of my friends who used that with upbringing her son, and it was so helpful for their family and for the dynamic and everything that they were going through. So I thought, we've got to talk about it, because I only really know a little bit about it. I don't really know much, only that it helped that friend a lot, and it made sense. I love it when something is logical. Even in amongst a lot of our world that we're navigating at the moment is illogical. There's a lot of things that are going on that don't make sense. But I would like to hear, tell us first about Circle of Security, and then we'll go into what you do. We'll do it backwards.
Yeah, sure. I think the interesting thing for me, and maybe can I give a little bit of context too about why it's important?
Let's start there.
So in 20 years of working with youth, children, in various formats, there's been so many parenting programs and, behaviour support planning, all these different things that really have worked at trying to help people, and especially children, behave better.
Yeah.
And the problem is that with a lot of it, like say behaviour support planning, I could write a behaviour support plan for getting a child to help get ready in the morning, or to ride a bus to school, or to do whatever it is. But what we do in that format is that we end up writing a million behaviour support plans for everything that they're going to do.
Yeah.
Whereas actually what we want to do is to look at, well, why isn't that child doing well in the moment? And it comes back to attachment theory.
Yeah.
So if we can find a way for anyone that works with this child, say the bus driver or a school teacher or a parent, to be able to go, hey, I can see you're not doing well in this moment. how can I use our attachment to find out what your need is and help do better?
Yeah.
Then we don't have to have a million behaviour support plans. It's about connection. And I think this is
a
the
new
thing
way
that's
to
been
communicate, isn't it?
It is.
It's honestly, it's the thing that is hardest thing to change, but it seems to be the thing that we're needing to give our attention to.
Yeah. And the tricky thing that the research shows us with attachment is that ideally what we'd like to have is a secure attachment. And that means that we've been raised with a caregiver. Well, actually, let me take it a step back. Attachment basically forms between a carer and a baby. Like if you think about, like as a mother, when your babies were crying, you would go in and pick them up. You would, find out what their need was. Were they hungry, tired, unwell, those sorts of things, need their nappy changed. And then you would basically soothe them and then you'd put them back down.
Yeah.
And
that builds the connection.
1,000,000 times you did that?
Oh, yeah. And, I had a cheat sheet because I knew the 5 words that they say.
Yeah, okay.
When they come out.
Yeah.
So that figuring out the need was a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Than when for people that don't know that.
Yeah.
So I felt like I had a cheat. I will put that link into the show notes for people, the Dunstan baby language, because that is something that helps with this as well.
And the thing I think that mostly parents never set out to do wrong by their children. Like I do really strongly believe that, even after 20 years of being in the child protection sector, I think that really people, if you've got a baby that is really hard to settle, then it's so distressing.
It's so hard.
And you want your baby to do well. Yeah. Some of the research does show that if while pregnant you're experiencing domestic violence, it increases the cortisol levels in your unborn baby, which means that when it's born, it's going to be more difficult to settle. Yeah. So it's really tricky. So attachment, basically we all want secure attachment, but then we can have other types of attachment. And really the easiest way to understand it is that they are insecure attachment styles, and they can play out in different ways where a child might feel really anxious, so they're not able to be separated from their parents.
Yeah, and that happens for so many kids when they go into kindy or daycare or school or whatever. That's when it starts being noticeable.
Well, and there's also healthy attachment, and really a child who is distressed being left at kindy, that child could have a secure attachment, because actually it's not normal for a child to be left with strangers. So part of why I love Circle of Security, even for professionals, is that it is about developing that sense of security for them, so that it's not just being left with a stranger. You can then actually get down to the child's level, form that attachment with them.
Yeah.
The other thing that Circle of Security really, I find quite fascinating, is that it can also talk about how parents can miscue their children as well. So Circle of Security gets its name from, essentially, most people will have seen it. When children go out into the world, they will start, it's that classic thing when you go to the playground and they run off, and then they look back to make sure that you're there.
Yep.
Indicator of secure base, and then they go play, and then if something happens or they sort of see you not paying much attention, they might come back to you. Yeah. And that's the beauty of Circle of Security. It's hidden in plain sight.
And I love that, because it is so true, even from right when they're tiny little babies and you've just finished feeding, and then you've done all the things, and then it's time for them to go to bed, and then they wake up and they cry because you're not there, and then you come in, and then that's like the first one of the little circles. Yeah. Then they start crawling. Yeah. Then they start walking. Yeah. And then the circle just gets from being like a micro circle to a little bit bigger, but there is a pattern. Yeah. 100%. And you can so see that pattern.
Yeah. And what I sort of started talking about in there was that parents can also have their own experiences.
Yes, and so share that.
And really it's only, Circle of Security is really an introduction to so many things. But a beautiful thing is that, say for instance, if you never experienced a secure attachment or something's happened. So say for instance, if you've had a traumatic event in your life where, I mean, it could be whatever, but it could be that you've been in a toxic relationship, or that the child has been really unwell when they're young, anything that kind of makes you feel a bit more anxious about it. What can happen is that,
this is as a parent feeling more anxious.
You might go to drop your child off at kindy, and I know it's a huge thing for all parents, mostly, but you might feel really anxious. And what can happen is that rather than the child actually having anxiety around it, they're miscued. So they think that kindy then becomes unsafe. So they will show with you that, you know, you can't be separated. And I've seen it before where I did have a kindergarten boy that was a little bit anxious, but his mother's anxiety was really, really intense. So the first day she came with him and spent all day with us. And then the next day she came and then she left him for half an hour. And during that half an hour time that she left him, she called me about, like, I think it was probably about 10 times.
Wow.
Just to see how he was doing.
Mm.
And what I noticed in myself was that my anxiety actually was increasing every time she called, because I was thinking, what is she so worried about? And this is years ago, before I understood so much about what attachment and even being present. And, you know, my anxiety then feeds into his anxiety, those sorts of things.
Well, that's where the energy side of things comes in.
Yeah.
That, like, I don't know how people do life without knowing the energy side of what you're describing.
Yeah.
Is that we're these antennas that can actually read other people's energy, and we, you know, it's not our fault because we weren't taught this.
Yeah.
But we think that anxiety is ours because we're feeling it.
Yeah.
When the truth is, it's not even ours.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And the other interesting thing on the other side of the circle is that if in your experience as an adult, you don't know how to emotionally regulate yourself, what we can see is that if a child's hurt themselves and they come in and you don't know how to hold that space for them, then we can also miscue that child. And then they don't know that you're that safe person. So we will see that when a kid's upset, that they won't come to you, that they might go to someone else. And the really important thing that I want to say with this is that just because that's playing out doesn't mean that it can't be changed.
Yeah.
All of it can be changed. And the other beautiful thing is that when we start unpacking Circle of Security, and it's kind of easy with your kids because you get to practice it and you
It's
don't
like
have
a
to be
daily
perfect.
thing.
Yeah. You don't
They're
have
always
to be
there.
perfect. You can always learn, right?
Oh my gosh.
I messed up. All right, let's try it again. And every day is a new opportunity.
Well, your kids are the biggest teachers that you'll ever have in your life.
Yeah.
At least that's the approach that I took.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you'd try something and then you wouldn't get a result. And you'd be like, well, that isn't working. You know, well, I tried the thing that Mum used to do and, well, that doesn't work because I know what that was like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, so then we're pretty lucky to live in a world now where we have access to information, where if something isn't working, we can go out, like in the Circle of Security, try and figure out what we need to then bring back.
Yeah.
You know, and to bring that in, and then we practice.
Yeah.
Everyone's just practicing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And children, maybe more so than adults, but children grow and change and they learn all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and they don't think like adults think.
oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and part of that, the fascinating thing that I really learned to understand, particularly when it came to working with kids that maybe had experienced significant abuse, is that children are reliant on, well, all mammals are reliant on their parent, but human beings are reliant on their parents for longer.
Yeah.
So children grow up and there's a period of time in their life where they're egocentric, which means that if a parent speaks in a harmful way towards them, you know, be it negative, criticism, whatever, the child doesn't think, oh my God, you know, my parent is mean or unkind, or, you know, they're not caring for me. They make it about themselves. But
I
that's
mustn't
because,
be doing something right. I've done something wrong here.
Yeah.
I have to do.
Yeah.
I have to. They check the temperature of the room before they come in.
Yeah.
To then figure out how they've got to show up.
Yeah.
You know.
100%.
I mean, that was. It's for people, particularly in our generation. That was our upbringing.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
that's hardwired.
Yeah.
And you see now a lot of people, parents, trying to change that because they
Yeah.
know it didn't work for them.
Yeah.
And we are seeking knowledge, we are seeking information that's going to help us to kind of make sense of this crazy reality that we live in.
Yeah. Well, and we need these skills, right?
We really need to upskill, and we do need to have some understanding.
The thing that I find really fascinating with it all too is that I've worked a lot with, say, single dads or newly separated parents or parents that have high conflict or, you know, youth workers or foster carers who are coming in, and sometimes these situations are quite turbulent emotionally for the adults, but also to the children can be quite dysregulated. And what I've really tried to help people understand is that how you show up, if you come with anxiety because you think you're going to be questioned or interrogated or everything that you do is going to be used against you, that's the energy, that's the feeling that the kid picks up on, because they've got to read you and they don't understand the meaning behind all the words or what it means when you're, you know, driving this way or when you do that. What children rely on is the energy. And, you know, I guess there's lots of different ways to interpret energy, but we feel it too. Like when we walk into a room, doesn't matter who you are, you will always pick up on the vibe of the room. If it's threatening or menacing, most people don't want to stay.
No, they know. They don't know why they know, but they know they've got to leave.
Yeah. And that's the same with kids. You'll see it. Like there's so many different research projects, programs, everything that's gone out there. And there's like an 18-month-old that's sitting playing games with someone, and their caregiver goes out the room and they're like a little bit distressed, but they feel comfortable enough where they are at, and someone will come into the room that's angry, and they will stop engaging because they can pick up on that. But it's a survival instinct.
Yeah, that our bodies are designed to pick up on danger.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to do that before you're even consciously aware it's happening.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we don't educate our kids into how to manage that.
Yeah.
And I suppose probably because we're only discovering at our age that it's a thing.
Yeah. Oh,
you know, like I've known about energy for 25 years. I've luckily enough had the understanding when my kids were little about energy.
Yeah.
And I watched all of that, you know, the kids change and all the rest of it. So I had an understanding about it.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of people still don't understand that the kids are so sensitive, and they can read energy like so much quicker than an adult can, because they don't have the programming that the adult has to, I'll just do it this way, Aisha, because you were taught to do it this way. Override your own feelings because, you know, it doesn't really matter what you think. You've just got to sit there with a smile and pretend everything's fine.
Yeah.
And you've had years of training of doing that, so you tend to be able to just drop into that quite easily.
Yeah.
Whereas kids don't have that.
Yeah.
And they're showing the adults now that this is happening and that we've got to change it.
Well, I'm curious because I do feel like that children have always said it and shown it in the best way that they can.
I agree.
But I mean, the other interesting thing is that memory works in a really interesting way. So memory works in correlation with language. So if you think about a little kid who might have grown up in a household where there's a cat and a dog and there might be a horse or a cow, pre-verbal, they are looking at this hairy creature that's got 4 legs.
Yeah.
And
they
don't have language to discern it. So their memory of what that looks like is, you know, it's still got 4 legs and that sort of stuff, and the shape might change. But then as they start to learn language and go, oh, cat, dog, horse, what happens is that the way that memories are filed, it can't necessarily change those earlier memories. So there is a process that goes from our earlier years to then when we develop language. And I think what can happen is that sometimes when we're learning language, the cues that we get from the adults around us, well-meaning cues.
Oh, well-meaning. It's not. I'm pretty sure people don't get up in the day thinking, I'm really going to ruin this kid's
Yeah.
life.
But they
You know what
can
I
be
mean?
misguided. And I think, you know, when we look at things like discipline, you know, it's one of those words where, you know, discipline is actually about mastering the art of something. It's not about using fear.
So that's the dictionary definition, is it?
Well, if you study martial arts,
Yeah.
when you think about discipline, it's about getting up there and practicing it. So I'm going to learn discipline, which is about managing my emotions.
Absolutely.
What am I going to do? I'm going to practice losing control so that I can find control in that moment.
And that's exactly what we do.
But then
And that's life.
when we think about behaviour,
Yeah.
for some reason parents think that yelling at their kid is going to teach them, you know, they need to be disciplined. Well, let's look at it.
I love that. And this is good that you even brought the martial arts up, because the thing that I had drilled in from doing this for a long time now, so is that the discipline that you develop in yourself from that practice
Yeah.
only happens when we go in and self-reflect on what is it that we need to do differently.
Yeah.
How can we show up differently? Because if the child is not responding to me yelling at them and it doesn't change their behavior,
Yeah.
and you try that once,
Yeah.
if you do it a second time and you're expecting a different result, the question is, because from a teaching karate perspective, if I've got to teach somebody a lower block and I've said it once one way and that student just cannot convert what I've said into an active response,
Yeah.
then the person that has the problem is the teacher or the parent,
Yeah.
not the person trying to do the block or the kid that's chucking a tantrum.
Yeah.
The person that needs to change
Yeah.
is the person that is supposed to be old enough to understand that if something's happening and that you don't like it and the way you're approaching that situation, you're not getting the result you want, then you have to change,
Yeah.
not the other person.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been reinforced from when I had the kids into
Yeah.
martial arts.
Yeah.
It's the same message, because literally I just am the one that changes and I get different results.
Yeah.
No more kiddie tantrums, no
Yeah.
more issues. You have kids that are willing to do things out of the goodness of their heart,
Yeah.
instead of because I'm telling them I'm the parent and they have to do it.
Yeah.
So, but it always came back to me having to be the one that changes.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
the lower block. Like
Yeah.
I have to change.
But I think it's interesting because it's true. But I also want to acknowledge that mostly the times where things don't work is when we ourselves are in moments of semi-crisis.
And that's when you take your leave, people.
Yeah.
You phone a friend, call
Yeah.
someone, ask for support, especially when you're parenting. And like that's another thing that I find is a disservice to the whole reality, is the fact that for some reason women are supposed to be these Adonis amazing humans that nothing affects, right? And that the other people judge, oh, they're just having a tantrum, right?
Yeah.
And you're not dealing with it that day.
Yeah.
The judgment doesn't help people.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
What that person, that mother or father or caregiver needs is some compassion.
Yeah.
They actually just need help.
Yeah.
I mean, and for that person, it's probably a good idea to feel into, can I ask for help?
Yeah.
Right? And can I be okay that I can ask for help? Because that's another thing that happens too. But yeah, like when you are in that crisis situation, the best thing that you can do is ask for help.
I agree. And I think that there's a lot of truth. You know, that beautiful quote, I don't know where it comes from, but it takes a village.
Yes.
Like it really does, and it always has. And I mean, children we're social creatures.
Yeah.
We need to interact. And as beautiful as our mum and dad might be, if we grow up just in a household and we don't interact, we actually don't learn all those nuances about how to navigate tricky things. And it's easy to start when we're younger. But I do want to give parents a bit of acknowledgement and say, like, I don't believe that we've ever been as busy trying to manage it all than we ever have been before. And not only that, but there's so many things that are really complex. Like, I do believe that food can play a massive role in people's lives. And I don't want to shame anyone by anything, I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it in myself as well. But and then we talk about technology.
Yep.
You know, people are pulling their hair out, and all the research says that even half an hour of screens is bad. But what do we do?
Well, gosh, that's a whole nother topic. But like when it comes to the technology side of things, you know, we do live in a world of technology, and there is so much pressure on a parent to do everything the right way.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like to be seen to be doing all the things.
Yeah.
But there's so many things.
And
that puts you in overwhelm. And then who is it? Well, it's the voice in your own head.
Yeah.
That's causing most of the trouble.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, there are so many contributing factors with food, with tech, with school, the outside influences that are all trying to give you their opinion about what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really only worked for me was to sort of sit with, here are my options, and then come back into my own channel and ask, well, what's right for my child?
Yeah.
Because just because that's right for your child doesn't mean that it's right for my child.
Yeah.
And that started with food, moved on to tech and all the rest of it, because of every human is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's no one size fits all.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I've seen that time and time again. The other thing that I want to just flag is that in that moment where that parent is feeling really overwhelmed, is to give yourself a bit of credit in that moment, because part of the reason why you're feeling really bad is that you really want the best for your kid.
Yes.
And I think we've got to actually start with a bit of kindness, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you didn't care, then it wouldn't be a problem.
No.
And you're caring, you can't compare to someone else. Like,
no.
I remember I've spoken to lots of parents who, you know, just for instance about the food thing, I had a parent whose child was in care, and, you know, they really loved their child and they were doing everything that they could. And I was pretty young, so I was like in my early 20s when we were having this conversation. And she said, Aisha, you know, like, it's all good that people judge me because I've brought the wrong food. But she said when she was growing up, she didn't even get food.
Yeah.
And she didn't even, you know, like, she was made to eat dog food, like all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And she said, like, I actually went to the supermarket and I have sort of followed the signs about what is okay.
That's right.
And I've bought things from the supermarket that I knew that my kid would eat. And now I've been told that it's not really food. And I'm really confused because it's not dog food.
Yeah.
And it's not moldy and it's not off and it's not all these things, yet I'm still being judged for it. And it was a really, like, a gentle wake-up call for myself to go, yeah, you know what? Like, lollies or shapes or whatever might technically not be food, but when you look at everything that's in a supermarket, I wouldn't classify for myself that most of that's actually food that's good for you.
Yeah.
Because the nutritional value is pretty much zero.
But you have to have done a little tiny bit of research into that.
Oh, definitely.
And people rely on the authorities, the people like the Heart Foundation and the Organic Tick and all the rest of it. They rely on that because that's supposed to be looking after us.
Yeah.
But what we're finding, the more we dive into nutrition, and because we're seeing kids with allergies and issues, we're having to look at nutrition now, where probably 50 years ago you didn't have to, because people just ate meat and 3 veg.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Now, food isn't food.
Yeah.
Food's a whole bunch of other things that needs regulation. Food is modified, and it is having an effect on people, and it is important to have a little element of an awareness of it, and also to forgive yourself if you're at a point where you're realizing that what you've been doing thinking is the right thing, you're coming to understand might not be. I remember that moment for me. I was sitting on the floor in my kitchen with everything out of my pantry on the floor around me, so you can imagine, bawling my eyes out with the Chemical Maze app in my hand.
Yeah.
Going, I'm a bad parent. This is when my kids were really little, so like a 3 and a 1-year-old. Going, I'm a bad parent. I've been poisoning my kids, and giving myself a full serve about what a horrible, horrible person I actually am. And being devastated because I actually didn't even know where to start to change it.
Yeah.
Because back then, that was kind of when Google was starting to be a thing.
Yeah.
And there wasn't as much access to information as there is now. So I fucking love technology.
Yeah.
Because I can Google something now.
Yeah.
And I've had permission of that, because if you go to the doctors, they Google it.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing wrong with having a good old look, but as long as we're a bit discerning with once we get that information, we now just have a little sit with it, all the options, and figure out what one feels right.
Yeah. So I want to take that example because it's a really good one.
Yeah, please do.
When you're sitting in that moment and you're feeling like absolutely devastated and heartbroken. Like, how could I have done this?
Nowhere to go.
What I want you to do is to also have a think about what message is your child receiving from you in that moment.
Well, fortunately, they weren't there.
Well,
they were with Nanny.
Yeah.
Because I thought, for that reason, I thought I'm starting to notice these things happening with the kids and their digestives and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, I'm feeling dysregulated. So if I'm going to do this, it's probably better if they're not around.
But that's beautiful, because that does indicate that you had that awareness, because I know there's plenty of people that discover things and then they'll rush over to their child and pick their child up and be really distressed. And what happens in that moment is that the child doesn't know that it's been about the food on the floor and all of that sort of stuff. The child just picks up that distress from you. So what I want to really talk about is the importance of meeting yourself in kindness, because at the end of the day, we know that you might have had a beautiful strategy that worked fabulously with your child, or, your child might have been really fine on a food and then has developed over time like a toxic load to it. It doesn't mean that you've been poisoning them or, whatever. And it's about having compassion for yourself, because actually that's something that we also want to role model to our kids. Like, oh, whoops, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Because that's just as important as getting it right.
So important.
But it is massive, like so many things to unpack.
Yeah.
But when we talk about connection, the beautiful thing is that when we are thinking about being intentional and being present, even in those moments where we really stuff it up, like we're all human, we might get angry, we might have a whammy ourselves, but actually it's always the way that we repair the relationship after it happens. And for me, I think all of us could probably rupture without any help or support. All of us have it it's innate in some respect.
Yeah, sometimes it just hits you like a wave, and it's not what you want to be doing, it's not how you want to be, but it happens.
Yeah.
And then it really, I've watched it in action, particularly with the kids, is that if you do take personal responsibility, and once you have regained your composure.
Yeah, yeah.
And calm down and been able to reflect on what had happened and all the rest of it. And then you go and have a good conversation with the kids about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Everyone can then come to a better understanding about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then you're modelling behaviour.
It's so important because that's how children learn.
Yeah.
And if they've never had an apology given to them, how do they know how to apologise? Even when you demand it, children learn through experience, and if they haven't received it, then they don't know what it feels like.
Yeah.
So they probably are going to say sorry because that's what they've been told to say.
But if they don't really understand what they're as when I was a kid, I didn't agree with the sorry.
Yeah.
There were a lot of times where I'm like, I don't want to say sorry.
Yeah, because I'm not.
Because I'm not.
And why would you be?
Why would you say sorry when it's, what was actually happening was bad behaviour on the adult's perspective.
Yeah.
And crazily, as kids, you can see that.
Yeah.
Because even though you've got a little body, you're actually quite the intelligent human in there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time I don't think people give that much consideration.
Yeah.
With the kids.
I agree.
Just the assumption is that they're in a little body, they don't know anything, I have to teach them.
Yeah.
And I can say hand on heart that has not been my experience. Not one iota.
I agree because I do relief work at the moment, and there was a little baby that I was talking to recently, and when I walked into the room, they looked up and, as they should, what's happening? And I got down to their level and I said, good morning, it's lovely to meet you. And they gave me a little smile. And then I've made sure that when I interact with people, particularly children, that I make that connection to see them.
Yeah, so you're at their level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it builds trust because they can understand that I've seen them, I've acknowledged them, but I also haven't demanded that they come into my space. I'm respecting them. And then when they're comfortable and they come over to me, then that's how we show a trusting relationship.
Yeah.
But it's also too, all of us, if we think about if we lost a sense, like they talk about, so if, for instance, you became visually impaired, then your other senses become more alert.
More alive, yeah.
That's the same for children. They don't have language. They don't have communication to be understood. And I do really want to preface here too that children up until the age of 7 have a really logical way of understanding things. Like it's not until you have a good grasp of the English language that you can learn to manipulate it a bit, have sarcasm, all these sorts of things.
Oh my goodness. I've missed that class because I've never understood the English language and sarcasm. The stuff that comes of that, what a weird language we have learned.
Definitely, definitely. But I think, so when, for instance, when a kid's running inside,
yes,
and you say stop running inside, they understand the concept of stop. Like if you say stop, they kind of get that, and then they get the run inside, but they don't know how to combine it together.
Yeah.
So their brain kind of deletes the negative language, which we hear in NLP, nonviolent communication, early years framework.
Yeah.
It's strength-based language. I mean, there's lots of
research on it now. It's delete, don't, not, and no from your vocabulary.
Yeah.
And you get a better result.
Or how about you actually say what you want the child to do?
Yeah.
Like when you go into a shop and you say, hands behind your back, look with your eyes.
They do it. It's
they
like
know
magic.
what to do. If you say, okay, and let's be honest, when they go into a shop, there's a million things to distract them.
All they want to do is touch everything.
But it's all set up. Like the lollies are not at adult height, they're at children's height. All the fluffy, bright toys, all of that, the distraction. And I mean, it's great advertising to sell things.
Yes.
What we need to do is to help children do well. And that's by being really clear on what it is that we want to see. And if a child, for instance, is dysregulated, saying stop crying, they don't know how to do it sometimes. And we've got to learn to have compassion for everyone with this. When you are overwhelmed, your brain changes how it's functioning. You know, we've got 3 parts of our brain. We've got our survival, first part of our brainstem that develops. That's all our subconscious, you know, that's our heartbeat, breathing, all of that. And then we've got our emotional brain, and then we've got our thinking brain. If you're having a meltdown, your thinking brain shuts off.
Yep.
Even your emotional brain might kind of be like in fire alarm stage, where it's just, you know, flashing, and you're back down into survival.
Yeah.
A really good example, if you're being chased by a bear, it doesn't matter what type of bear it is.
No, it doesn't.
It just matters that you get away.
Yeah. And the thing that I find that a lot of people don't realise is that whether there is a perceived danger or a real danger, your body doesn't know the difference.
Yes.
And so it still produces cortisol, adrenaline, and gets you ready and primed to run.
Yeah.
Even if it's just the problem is in your mind.
Yeah.
That you haven't actually, it's not actually happening right here, right now. You're worrying about something in the future, or you're remembering something from the past.
Yeah.
Your body doesn't know the difference.
I agree. Yeah.
And it's one of the things that, you know, the invitation for people is to start mastering this.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Quite often what's wired in our survival brain is the pre-verbal stuff, our early years experience. And when we think about it, if we've got caregivers that aren't consistently meeting our needs, I'm not talking about perfect, but I'm talking about maybe a parent that's absent, you know, they might be really depressed and be in bed for days. You know, the impact that
even
that
like
child,
fly in, fly outs, or you know, like there's lots of different scenarios that you want to be there.
Yeah.
But life takes you away from it.
Yeah.
You know, you go to work, you
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the other really beautiful thing that I love about Circle of Security training is this one sort of concept that they have where they talk about shark music. And it's like, you know, that time when you're at the beach and it might be the most beautiful sunset and your heart's like,
I can already hear the Jaws music going.
But that's the thing. We could be in situations where we've got this soundtrack that plays for us. So say, for instance, if you grew up and in your household, say, for instance, everyone had to eat dinner at the table and there had to be silence. But as a child, when you're growing up, you know, you love to share about your day and all these sorts of stuff, and you constantly got reprimanded. Your experience then as an adult, when you're raising your children, might be that you need to have, you need to have dinner in a particular way. And it might be to model that same behaviour that you grew up experiencing, or it might be to model completely opposite.
The direct opposite, yeah.
Where, you know, you don't care where the kids eat, they can eat all over the house and that sort of stuff. But you also too might be in relationship with someone who, you know, say for instance, you don't care where they eat, where they grew up and it was a beautiful time at the table.
Yeah.
And what we do as parents is we often don't share those early experiences, and we don't often have the awareness that we've got shark music playing. But you can only imagine in that household, if you've got one carer that doesn't understand why you never get the kids to sit at the table when it's this beautiful thing, and instead, like, what you're finding is little bits of food all over the house and all these sorts of stuff, or, you know, your dog's getting overweight, or, you know, whatever, or it might be seen as unruly, disrespectful, you know, that narratives they can play out in any way. But what we need to do, and this is what I love about Circle of Security, is that it helps bring things up in a way where we can start talking about these things, not in a judgmental way, but start to get really curious about what someone else's experience might be, and what they're feeling triggered by in that moment, and how that might be impacting their capacity to follow through with the child to help them do well. And, you know, it's that beautiful thing about even understanding how do we help children do well. And for me, you know, it's that thing about children are learning to push boundaries. They're learning what's safe in the world. And how do you learn to do that? Well, you learn to experiment and you learn to push boundaries a little bit. And we see that innately in babies, you know, when they're learning how to walk, they know they're going to fall over. But for some reason, parents seem to get it really well that a baby needs to practice walking. And yes, we might put a mat on the ground so they don't crack their head, or we might do stuff, but we don't say to the baby, you're not allowed to get up.
Yeah.
We manage the environment around them to help them do well. But then it seems like sometimes we forget that a little bit.
I think so. The kids get sort of past that point and they're walking okay and they seem to be doing okay, and then all of a sudden that approach goes right out the window.
Yeah.
And then autopilot kicks in.
Yeah. Or we start like, I told you not to do that. And you're like,
yeah.
What? Do they understand what that is? Because I know in my experience, and, you know, I know from my personal experience, but also professional experience, that children really love the adults that they're around, and they want to be loved, and they want to be seen, and they want to be cherished, and they will do whatever they can to make that happen. And when kids are using behaviour, you know, and we could say manipulative, which I don't believe
in either.
Is a strategy. What they're desperately trying to do is to use the only survival strategy that they know in that moment. So if you're really struggling with behaviour, like a classic example might be, you know, kids putting seatbelts on in the car. A really beautiful way to support kids is to say your seatbelt needs to go on. So giving a choice. If you, so your seatbelt needs to be put on. If you can't do that, I'm going to help you. Yeah. And it's that simple thing about I'm setting a really clear expectation. I'm not getting into it. I'm not going to sit in the car for 15 minutes having an argument with a 5-year-old, because the reality is that if the 5-year-old's struggling to put the seatbelt on, chances are it's not about the seatbelt. It's about emotional dysregulation. And there's something so big going on.
They don't know how to articulate it, and that's 100% every single time, and it won't be what you think it is.
Yeah, I agree.
And you need to pause for a little bit, and and that's hard because, you know, we're trying to meet social requirements, getting kids to school and all the rest of it. But if you have an awareness, okay, there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
And there's a willingness in you to kind of, you know, inquire.
Yeah.
You might get to the bottom of it, but it is a mindset thing about the kids manipulating you versus something's going on. It's a shift that is a really crucial shift that can really help people give themselves a break.
Yeah.
You know, it isn't always about you.
I'd say most of the time it's not.
Yeah. But I like that. So I, you know, the seatbelt needs to go on. If you can't do it yourself, I'll do it for you.
Yeah. And it's
that.
About respect. It's about setting the expectation. You're giving them choice.
Yeah.
But it's also too, when you say it calmly, and intentionally, the kid knows, and you follow through. Like, that's the thing. You're setting that consistency. And really, at the end of the day, I've seen it work. Kids want to be treated with respect. They want to be seen and they want to be heard. If you're having a really bad day, and most of us will be able to relate to this, and say, for instance, you know, you're just actually not doing well, we've got the option to call in work and say, you know what, I can't come. Or we've got the option to say to our partner, I'm just going to go to bed, or I'm just going to have a shower. And what options are we giving our children? And we might, I think, well, as adults, sometimes we can dismiss what's going on for a child. I know when I was talking with kids, with parents and kindergarten age children about going to school, this might be the first big transition in their life. And this is as big as getting married, buying a house, doing any of those sorts of things, because they've had 5 revolutions around the sun. They've only got this little pool of experience to call on. And it's huge because...
And it's so interesting because in sessions with me, that can be one of the biggest traumas for people that they have to actually face.
Yeah.
They'll regress straight back to when mum dropped them at school.
Yeah.
And it causes the physical response for them, and then they are having to process that as an adult.
Yeah.
When if there was a little bit more awareness, perhaps they would have had a different experience.
Yeah. I mean, it
blows your mind.
It does blow your mind.
People.
It also blows your mind about how there's been campaigns forever about stranger danger.
Yeah.
Now, just because you know that that school is doing okay and, you know, that they're going to be a nice teacher or whatever, how does your child know that? And if your child has not seen you interact with that person, you know, this is why we need to introduce, you know, children slowly to things. And I mean, you know, it might just be a few meet and greets and that sort of stuff, but it's also too about helping them have a bit of an idea about what's going on. I know there's lots of people that say, oh, you know, you don't need routine and structure. And it's like, I don't think that things need to be concrete, but I think kids need to know a little bit about the plan, because otherwise it's a lot for them to manage. Like if you just drop your kid off at school and you say, okay, have a good day, see you later. Well, what does that look like? When are you coming back? If you don't know how to tell the time or what a day looks like.
Well, here's something, right? So I find this interesting because something that, again, with when the kids are little, the assumption is they don't understand you.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Now, that hasn't been my experience.
Yeah.
All right. So when my kids were little, my husband and I liked to go out for dinner, right? And we would take the kids with us because mostly the people that would look after the kids would come out to dinner with us, you know? It was like, you know, what's the options where we weren't willing to have a stranger babysit our kids. So when we'd go out for dinner, the kids would come.
Yeah.
So the pram would be involved, or when they got a little bit bigger, there would be a pillow and a blanket, and they knew the rule, or the routine was that when you're tired, you pop down under the table and you can go to sleep, and when we're finished, Mummy and Daddy will pick you up and we'll take you home.
Yeah.
We'll eat dinner and we're going to take you with us. We're not going to leave you here.
Yeah.
Right? Never had a problem. Ever.
Yeah.
And then my kids have just always been very adaptable. So yes, structure in the sense that they knew we were always there, but not too much structure where it's like you got to eat dinner at 6 and you have to do this and blah, 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 like that kind of thing. But then I'm with some people at a New Year's party, and their 3-year-old it's nearly midnight, and this poor kid is got its eyes hanging out of its head.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And it's grabbing at mum and being annoying and doing all the things, right? And then out of the mum's mouth comes, if you don't behave, I'm going to leave you here.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. We're
going to leave without you. My heart broke. Literally broke.
Yeah.
And not my child, not my parental responsibility. This is another person's choice to do their thing that way. But it gave me the opportunity to reflect on, because my kids were in bed from 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Safely sleeping, happy. And if it was ever at someone else's house, they'd be asleep on the couch, quite happy.
Yeah.
Right? Somewhere I could see them.
Yeah.
But they'd be very happy to sleep in amongst the chaos.
Yeah.
But they'd be asleep.
Yeah.
Knowing that, because that's what they needed.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I'm like, wow, everyone does things differently, don't they? You know? But all I could feel for was for the kid.
Yeah.
Because that was why they were playing up. Because they were tired.
Yeah.
And they didn't feel safe. And they didn't have the safety created by the parent, and that's not that person's fault either, because they didn't have that awareness. Do you know? But that's why this sort of thing, this circle of security or any training, is so beneficial for parents, particularly when you get given a brand new baby. Like literally the scariest thing that will ever happen to anyone, right? Is that for 9 months you've carried that kid, you've had your baby, and then they give you, and then it's time to leave the hospital. Right? And they say, see you later.
Yeah. And
all of the stuff is geared to how to have the kid, but there's nothing about what you do after the kid's born.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing. Not unless you go and look for it.
Yeah.
Right? Which, fortunately, you can Google these things now, and this is a long time ago for me. But that is the scariest thing, is you get this little kid, and you're like, well, when am I supposed to feed it? How often am I supposed to feed it?
Yeah.
what do you mean? How can I be okay to look after someone else? Like, this is another human here.
Yeah.
What if I get it wrong?
I think this is the thing that I hear too, time and time again from parents, is that everybody too is very quick to pass judgment around what's going on.
Yes.
And I honestly believe that parents set out to do well. I mean, it was so fascinating. I was talking to a dad recently, and he was talking about supervision. Like, how much supervision do you give a child? Because, you know, you don't want to smother them. You want to help them be independent, but also to what's their skill level. And what I realized is that actually, unless you go out and learn how to discern appropriate information, because again, the information available is a massive spectrum where you can actually be misguided and misled.
Yeah.
But having that early childhood education background for me meant that I understand about all these sorts of stuff, and I shared with this dad a little bit of a checklist around what typically it might look like in the different age groups, like how development builds.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know anything like this existed. And I think it's important that parents do educate themselves, and it's made me actually, that's the next thing I'm going to develop. And it's not a checklist to go, oh, they're meeting their milestones, but it's those...
just to have a guide. So is that what you're going to create?
Yeah.
A guide for sort of how much, when, and what's a good amount of supervision.
Well, it's kind of like, well, where are their skill set at?
Yeah,
you know,
good.
like if they're not very, you know, like it's the thing about development. It happens innately. Like children innately develop.
Yeah, and they're not all the same.
Exactly.
And just because one kid gets things done a lot quicker than some other kid doesn't mean there's something that's, you know, straight away you need to be worried about, you know?
Like all of us, some people are more, you know, better at running marathons and all that sort of stuff. Some people are great at art, all of that. It's the same with babies and children as they grow, we see it. But like we know, say for instance with education, if we started year 12 maths in year 1 without doing all the foundational stuff, it's not going to make sense.
Yeah.
And that's the same with development. Like we are building on skills, and all of these skills really, really contribute. Like for instance, eating off a spoon actually helps develop the muscles in our mouth. So I remember speaking to a speech and language therapist, and she was talking about, you know, the sucky pouches. So they're great, but actually they don't develop that same oral capacity that you get when you have to lick stuff off a spoon. So what we saw was it was impacting some speech and language development. And same, for instance, you know, we talk about devices with kids being bad, but parents that are on their phone all the time.
They're modelling behaviour.
They are, but they're also too not engaging in conversation or role modelling different language. So children, how do you learn what, you know, hippopotamus is or photosynthesis or all of these things?
Yeah.
It's through hearing it. And if you're not engaging in conversation in front of your children, then they also too miss out on those opportunities.
Yeah.
And when people start wrapping their head around it, okay, so children need to witness something to be able to understand it.
Yeah.
Then they start increasing maybe what they expose their children to. Like I've done it before where I've had a bit of a meltdown because things weren't going very well. And I sat down and I you know, that didn't go to plan at all. Far out, Brussels sprout.
Yeah.
And I had 24 kids laugh. And I said, okay, should we try that again? And then we went in, and basically what I modeled to that to that group of kids in that moment was that it's okay to get things wrong and we can just start again.
Yeah.
And then I've also done it where I raised my voice in my own home, and I stopped and I took a moment and I came back and I sat down and I said, I really want to apologize because I raised my voice then and I didn't feel good about it, and I don't think that you felt really good about it. It wasn't about you. I was frustrated and I really didn't have a good toolkit to access in that moment. So I've taken a breath and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to come and do this with me now. You know what? They came and gave me a hug.
Yeah.
And we repaired that relationship. So it's not so much the yelling, you know, the rupture is bad, but then coming back, repairing that relationship.
What do you do after?
That's what the kids learn.
Yeah.
And hands down, I know with so many kids that I've worked with, you know, where one kid might have experienced the same level of abuse as another, this child receives support from the caregivers, whoever they might be in their environment, and this kid didn't. What I see is this child that didn't receive the support will most likely grow up with a level of trauma, distrust, fear, abandonment, all these core wounds.
Doesn't have any tools
Exactly.
to deal with the triggers.
Exactly. And we see that play out. So circle of security is great with young children,
Yeah,
but what
amazing.
it also does is it helps us be really conscious about the relationships that we're in. So I've seen parents do it, and then next thing you know, the way that they're communicating, it's like they've got a shared language.
Yeah.
And to talk about hard things.
And that's the important thing. So when you're training with this, is it encouraged that both parents come
Yeah.
and learn because of that, having the
Yeah.
same
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And the other beautiful thing that I've seen is when grandparents come as well.
yeah.
Like it's one thing to go, okay, I grew up, you know, my parents back in their day, but actually we do know that there's generational gaps and there's generational changes in the way that things happen. You know, our grandparents weren't equipped to deal with tech. They, you know, it
Yeah.
didn't even exist.
Didn't even exist. So
So
there
then-
is weird things that we're navigating now
Yeah.
that weren't even around.
And not only that, but tech is set up in such a way that often young people know how to navigate it much better than we do.
Yes.
So it's kind of a bit backwards. But what I've seen is that, you know, when grandparents are talking about these meltdowns, you know, they're thinking about their experience, which was that where fear might have been used to discipline, to guide behaviour, they don't want to use that. You know, you do what I say. They want to be soft and gentle, but they also to want the child to follow them. So they don't want to be weak. They don't want to be mean. So what does it look like to hold that middle ground? And you want to be assertive enough that that child knows that they can trust you to keep them safe in that space. Often what we'll see is that if a child feels like someone can't manage them and they've got big behaviours, is that they might push that person to hold them. And they're not pushing them to be horrible or to be mean or to be all of this. Basically, it's a desperate cry to say, help hold me, and say, like, here's the boundary. I'm going to keep you safe. You know, they're looking for that red line, and they don't know how to stop that behaviour because they can't manage it yet.
Yeah.
So they're desperately pleading for you to be there. And I think when people start looking at it that way, they're like, wow, okay. So I've had some grandparents that have totally changed their approach, and it's about holding that boundary
Yeah.
with care and compassion. And I find it fascinating because actually boundaries are something that I've talked about, you know, as a teacher. I've talked about it, you know, as a step parent. I've talked about it in so many different aspects. But boundaries, when you learn to hold that boundary with kindness and compassion, but also with firmness, it's a form of respect.
Yeah, it is.
And not only to yourself, but to that other person. And when kids learn about boundaries and, you know, those sorts of really beautiful aspects that most parents want to instill with their kids, they also learn to have resilience, and they also learn to be able to sort of stand up for themselves and to say things when things aren't right. And when we talk about child protection, won't go into it, but when we talk
Perhaps we do something like that in another podcast.
Definitely. But when we talk about protective factors, like I can tell, like I could teach kids a whole ream of different things, but actually it's more about teaching the adults. And the best thing that you can teach your child is to learn how to have respect with boundaries, so that if someone does say, oh, so I'm going to see if you're vulnerable and see if I can exploit you a little bit, because that's me fishing to see if I can exploit you further. If you say, no, thank you, then what that's saying to that adult is that actually I'm not going to be able to manipulate you, push on your vulnerabilities and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that's actually a kid that's more likely to say, oh, mum, you know, I was just playing a game, or I was just doing this and this person's interacted with me and it didn't make me feel very good, even though they might have said they're someone else. It's a protective factor.
Yeah.
And it's the key thing, I think, that most of us sort of forget about. Like, it's not about tech. It's about teaching our kids how to navigate tech.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, it's the same with the positive behaviour support plans. I could write a million behaviour support plans, but actually, isn't it better to teach that child how to engage, how to have connection, how to have security in who they are and in relationship, and so that they can navigate that?
And how the parent can then share that with the kid.
Yeah.
So, Aish, when someone works with you, what does it look like?
So, at the moment, while I build up some other training courses, I'm running Circle of Security, and I can do that one-on-one or in a smaller group setting, in the sense that it might be you and your partner, and it could be, you know, a teenage child that's in the house with young ones. It could be with grandparents. I also will run small groups, and all of this can be done online or in person. People at this stage have really been requesting to do it online, and they have been requesting to do it more one-on-one because they're navigating some trickier things in their personal experience.
They need to have some conversation.
Yeah, and they want more specific guidance around what's going on for them in their experience, and maybe they don't feel so confident to share it with everyone else. And the way that I've run the program, traditionally Circle of Security is run over 8 sessions, but I'm really respectful of people's time management, and 8 sessions is a big commitment.
Okay.
Most of the time people want to get that get the training done a little quicker. So I can run it over 6 sessions that are 1.5 hours, or I can run it over 4 sessions that are 2 hours.
Okay.
Ideally, it's best to have a week between each session, because the idea is that the skills that you learn, it's about implementing it and having practice of it, and then coming back and reflecting on it. And I just want to give everyone a caveat that this isn't about like memorizing any like specific things to say. It's really just about thinking about who you are, the sort of parent that you want to be, and knowing that, you know, it's not about being perfect. It's just about being able to come back and reflect on it and get it right for you and for your child. And that looks different for everyone.
Yeah. Amazing. So I'll make sure that I put all of the details in the show notes.
Beautiful.
So people can get in contact and
wonderful
and work with you. Now, before you shoof off, which will lead us into, you know, and however I do this, I might do it round the other way when we actually record, like put it on the thing.
Yeah.
Aish, what I would really like to ask you is what got you into working with kids?
That's a great question, and I've thought about it a lot. And what it stemmed from was actually when I went to preschool, kindergarten age group in New South Wales, I had the most beautiful preschool teacher who saw me, who heard me, who helped me really navigate some tricky things.
Amazing.
And it was funny because the way that she was with all children was so beautiful that I used to have school holidays at a slightly different time. So I used to volunteer in primary school. And then in high school, in year 12, I started studying early years because I thought, well, what do I want to do? I'm not sure I want to be a mum. I'm going to start educating myself about how to be the best mum I can. So I started studying at TAFE, and she was my TAFE teacher.
Oh, you're kidding. Same lady.
Yeah.
Wow,
and
there's no coincidences,
it changed her life to go, well, and I was able to say in front of that group of, you know, young learners, the reason why I'm here is because the way that she made me feel seen and heard. And for me, if you are working with young children, don't forget about the power of you showing up for them.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Circle of Security, because I've seen even some like early years teachers that are like, stop running inside. Oh, they never listen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we got to flip that on its head.
Yeah.
Let's talk about connection, because when you get it right,
Yeah.
it does change lives.
And like I've sat in that many classrooms now with having the two kids and watched the difference between obviously teachers that have this knowledge and teachers that don't.
Yeah.
Man, the ones that do have the kids eating out of their hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't tell from looking from the outside in what it is that they're doing differently, but they're definitely doing something differently.
Yeah.
And it can only be empowering for an educator to be able to have that skill. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't see a downside to learning a little bit more if what you're seeing and experiencing, you're feeling like you're butting up against a brick wall. Because at uni, you can only learn so much.
Yeah.
And then you've got to go out and have a bit of life experience. Yeah. And that's where then, if you are experiencing some challenges in the classroom or in, you know, your home environment or whatever, again, just know that there is help.
Yeah.
And like, I love that you're offering that help.
Yeah.
Because like, as the parent of kids that were in the school with teachers that were dysregulated and unable to deal with themselves, and they didn't know where to go, that was really unhelpful for the kids. You know, but from that person's perspective, it wasn't like there was even help for that person from the higher up in the organisation. You know, it's like, I don't know, I don't know. It obviously comes back to each of us individually to sit and go, all right, I'm not dealing here. What can I do differently?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why I got you on to come and have a chat about this stuff, because I just love that you're sharing a way that can be really helpful for people. Yeah. And it's not hard.
No.
It is just about having some exposure to a different perspective, which then you'll see land for you in different ways. Yeah. And then apply that in your particular environment, and then you start seeing changes come through.
It's the classic, you know, when you've got a group of kids or anything going on and you say, wow, I love the way that Harry's sitting on the mat with his legs crossed, his eyes are looking at me, his ears are turned on, and his hands are in his lap. Yeah. I've just given direction to the rest of the group on what I want to see, and Harry is sitting there beaming because he feels so delighted that he's been seen and heard and doing the right thing. Whereas if I start scolding all of the children based on the things that I'm seeing that I don't want them to do, the whole thing will implode.
The whole room explodes.
And it's the same, you know, when you're with your kids. Yeah. And you have to be real in what you say. If you're like, oh, you look really lovely today, completely different to, wow, I love those tones on you, that they really compliment who you are. Big difference in your intention in what you're saying. Yeah. And when kids don't have the complex language that adults do, that's all they are relying on to know if they're doing the right thing or not. Yeah. So we've got to be intentional. Yeah. And actually just be kind to yourself and others.
Yes, be kind. So something else I wanted to ask you.
Yep.
You know, so people can get to know you more.
Sure.
Is because you had you come from a different upbringing than the one that I did. So you were in a non-mainstream school. Yeah. And just give us a little bit of insight into what it's been like for you, you know, growing up, because I know innately you've just got a different perspective on the world than what some people do. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what it was like going to, what was the school that you went to?
I went to a Steiner school.
Yeah.
It is interesting that you say that, because of course it's hard for me to know outside of my own experience.
Yeah, exactly. So so for you it's all normal. Yeah. So what was it like being growing up and you know, experiencing life through your lens?
Well, I think there's two things that really sort of stand out for me. One, that I did grow up with quite a European influence. So I know, you know, the first time that I heard about meat and three veg was when I was 15.
Yeah, wow.
You know,
Yep.
but there was a different culture, a different way of doing things. But I grew up in the country where, you know, we basically had breakfast and then we went out and played all day. And having access to Steiner education, the way that I experienced it also too might be different to the way that a parent might experience it by sending their children. But one beautiful thing that it does, you know, Steiner talks about 7-year cycles. So a child from the age of, you know, 0 to 7 is kind of in a particular development, and then from 7 to 14 looks different, and we kind of can see cycles. And I know we talk about like Saturn return, and you know, there's other things that play out in all of it. But one thing that Steiner really focused on was we've got one teacher that teaches the main lesson, and essentially they kind of hold that class and take them through until the end of primary school. And for me, I do kind of, you know, I understand that there's lots of reasons for that, and I, you know, have pros and cons for that as well. You know, sometimes there's part of me that thinks it would be best to split that, because it's a long time to dedicate as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it means that you can't have any time off for your own family and, you know, that sort of stuff. And I do feel like the needs of, you know, say like kindergarten year 1 are still also very different to end of primary school.
Definitely.
And, you know, that's kind of, you know, a lot to go into. But what I've noticed is that a lot of my, you know, childhood friends all had Steiner education as well. And I think that there's a certain maturity that we have about how we see the world. I think that we're probably more aware of cycles and stuff like that. But interestingly, I did study Steiner a little bit when I, you know, been back to uni a couple of times. And for me, the interesting thing is that there's a lot of Christ consciousness that's taught through Steiner. He actually apparently accessed the Akashic records, and there's lectures on this sort of stuff. So there's kind of Christian aspects, but not church aspects. They're Christ consciousness, which is kind of more a spiritual perspective than a religious perspective. But then I don't know that many of the people that I went to school with understand that aspect.
Yeah, okay.
But I think for me growing up, my parents had this kind of belief that I would be seen and heard. And my parents are really beautiful in the sense that they were really intentional about the upbringing that they wanted me to have. And, you know, my dad now still grows like a food botanic gardens, really. So every time I go home, he'll always give me heaps of produce. And for me, you know, he's not a big verbalizer of I love you, but to grow produce that's taken 12 months, you know, every time he tends to it, he's thinking about the fact that he's going to have it for somebody. And, you know, he knows that by providing that for me, it's a way to say that I love you, but I've thought about you and I've done this with intention. You know, I just think that that's amazing. And, you know, they're my parents. They're not perfect. Like all of us, we've all got things to learn. But I feel like in making a choice about a school or about, you know, living in the country or about things like that, I think when it's done right and you share that with your children as they're growing up, really helps you know that there's been intention in who you are. And, you know, it doesn't always plan out. But
No,
that's
it's
what I've
led
learned.
you into a career of service to helping children
Yeah.
in many different avenues now.
Yeah.
And it's like set up a strong foundation in being heart-led
Yeah.
in everything that you do.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. And I think the other thing that plays out in it is that I think Yuri Brofenbrenner talks about each child needs someone to have unconditional positive regard for them. That is about believing that when the 5-year-old says that they want to be an astronaut, that having full faith that if that's what they want to do, then they
Why
can.
not?
And I did have an Oma that had that in me.
Yeah,
She
lovely.
saw me and believed in me and believed that I could be whatever I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't have to be your child. You can just see that in a child or have it for all children. And that child knowing that you believe in them and see them is powerful. And that's what can motivate them. And I guess that's probably what my preschool teacher did as well.
Yeah.
So it changes lives. And that's what I try to do for the kids that I have worked with. And I think now I'm at that stage where I can do that for children. But what I found to be really powerful is to help educate the parents or the carers or the workers, the professionals, whoever it is, grandparents in their lives, to understand that they can be that as well.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure.
On the blue couch.
Thanks, everyone. It's been lovely.
Oh, thank you.
Head over to lightofwellness.com. That is www.lightofwellness.com now and sign up for my newsletter by joining the Light Tribe. I will keep you up to date with the latest info on upcoming episodes, workshops, meditation groups, and Reiki courses. I would also love if you have a chance to rate us on iTunes. Ratings means we are able to reach more people. Thank you again so much for joining me today. Have a great week. The content found within these podcasts are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. Nothing on this website is intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any physical or medical conditions. If you have any physical or medical conditions, you should seek the advice of your medical professional immediately.